Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 282 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second amount of podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd. And with me tonight is the greatest hostess in the known universe. She's a big deal. You need to tell her this. Aaron Paulette! How are you doing, Aaron?
You don't need to tell me that.
They all need to tell you this. Like, every listener needs to tell you this.
So I survived 2023, sometimes just barely, but I did manage to survive, and unfortunately that's really about all I can say about that year. But I do have some good news. I think it was like 2 weeks ago I mentioned that we had finally gotten the master bathroom refurbished, and I was able to use it and move into that, and that was really good. And so we finally have the master bedroom, the master suite, the bedroom, the walk-in closet. All of that has been carpeted now, and the furniture has moved back in, and I am slowly moving my stuff in there. It's not going to be quick, because if I just move everything in there, I'm not going to have a place for it, so I'm taking my time and I'm slowly moving it in. But it's going really well. I think the walk-in closet is nearly done, except for my clothes, but like, my guns and my ammo and my preps and things like that, and I'm organizing that. And that's been keeping me busy. And so, I don't know if I'm going to be done by January, but honestly, the best I can say is I'll be moved in this year. So that's really good. And to answer a question I think you're about to ask, why no, the insurance company has not stopped playing games with us. We're still fighting with them. What Mom decided to do, of her own accord, mind you, I didn't tell her to do this, is we just decided to use some money from Dad's life insurance just to make it happen, because we were tired of tripping over all this stuff. And so maybe now if we submit a bill, they'll pay it. And if they don't, at least, we are returning our house to normal. And that's really the important thing. And so that's taken a load off my mind. And I'm sure as I get more and more moved in, then, things will get better for me psychologically. So that's the big deal that's going on with me right now. That's how I'm doing. How are you doing, Weer'd?
That's a huge deal. I'm doing all right. We had it's the first snowstorm of 2024, but it's also the first snowstorm of this winter. Winters have been weird recently. It seems like the winters have just shifted. It's not our winters are getting milder. It's we frequently have like snowless Novembers and Decembers, but then also we have like really darn snowy like Marches and Aprils. And so like I don't know. But yeah, we had a snowstorm, and things were predicted to be fairly mild, and it must be nice to be a weatherman, because they just have like zero accountability and can get like drunk by 11. Like I'm in the wrong line of work. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be completely wrong and still keep your job. It's amazing.
Exactly. And people are going to get mad at you if you're right. If you predict that you're going to rain out their cookout, they're going to be mad, even if, when it does rain. Or if it doesn't rain, or just people are just going to be mad at you anyway. So who cares? And so yeah, good on them. But yeah, it was a bit more than predicted. Not a ton more, but it was like really wet, gloppy. Like as I was telling one of my friends this morning, I was kind of hoping for a good warm up storm. We'll sometimes get like one where it's like, yeah, it's enough snow that you have to shovel, but yeah, you're barely tired when you're done shoveling it. And we have, since my parents have sold their house, they no longer need a snowblower, and so I have it. And but we also have a new car, And so I was one of those, like, I don't want to learn how to use the snowblower until I get a little bit more used to the logistics of the, like, having all these cars in the driveway. And so I didn't use the snowblower, and I think that was the right choice, but there were some moments where I was like, I should have used the snowblower. But yeah, so there was just a lot of shoveling and a lot of, like, fighting stuff, and I've been behind the 8 ball, and I've got a blooper reel to cut, and I don't know when I'm going to do it. And yeah, and it's but
I'm confused by one thing. I did not quite grasp what the snowblower had to do with your new car.
So there's a reason why I only got a snowblower last year. You know, it's not that we can't afford a snowblower. If we really wanted a snowblower, we would have bought one, and that was not something I specifically ever wanted, because essentially, to picture my driveway is about 115 feet long and straight, and one edge of it comes right up against the edge of my house. It's on the foundation of my house, and then the other edge of it is abutting my neighbor's driveway, and we got a little fence in between them. But essentially, if we didn't have that fence there, we'd essentially just have a giant double wide driveway, 2-car wide driveway. But they're wide enough for just 2 cars. Or wide enough just for 1 car to park on the driveway at any one part. And we can fit, if we pack them in, we can fit 4 cars all in the driveway that are of normal size. And so because of that, the very, very top of the driveway, it abuts the backyard, and so I could snow blow into the backyard. The very, very bottom of the driveway, I've got a front yard and the little, devil strip area that's between the street and my house that I could technically throw snow onto if I can be precise enough with the snowblower. I'm not that experienced. And then there's this huge middle portion where essentially I'd have to throw the snow further down the driveway and let it pile up, and then keep slowly changing the direction of which I'm throwing it until eventually it reaches a destination that I'm happy with. And with 2 cars, and it just so happened to be that, like, they weren't parked great to begin with, and I didn't really feel like shuffling them around, so that, like, essentially one door is, like, all the way up against the house, and all of that. And so, yeah, that was all. It was just it's a very, very narrow, tight driveway. And then we just bought my old car was getting to that point where I want to deal with it anymore. The check engine light turned on just as we were looking at the new car. It's like, you're trying to get rid of me. Well, guess what? I'm going to wreck my resale value right in front of you. And and so but my car was, like, starting to throw like a couple of expensive repairs a year at us. And so we were like, all right, it's time for it to go. And we ended up getting a Honda Pilot, which is a little bit bigger. It takes up a little bit more space. And it's also, like, new and shiny, and I'm still not going to wash it. And so eventually it's not going to be new and shiny. But for that time, I'm a little bit wary of accidentally throwing, like, salt and gravel all over it at high speeds with a snowblower. So that's the reason why.
That last line was literally all you had to say.
Yes.
Instead of a diatribe about the dimensions of your driveway and abutting your neighbor's house and so on and so forth.
How long have you known me, Aaron Paulette?
Too goddamn long.
This is the statement about, like, people are like, how does your wife deal with you? I'm like, we met when we were 13. She knows what she was getting into.
But I mean, to be completely honest, I think we have been pretty good friends for like 10 years now. I want to say 2014 was the NRA that you met me. Maybe it was the one after that. I'm not certain, but I want to say.
Yeah, but we'd known each other for a bit before that too.
We had known each other a bit before, but okay, we didn't really do much on Facebook, but it was the equivalent of just being a Facebook friend. It was just like, yeah, we talked on each other's blogs, but I didn't really know you.
I gotcha.
maybe you had started doing Gunblug Variety Cast by that point. I'm not certain, but yeah. Anyway, point being is I've known you pretty well for at least a decade at this point.
Yeah, I want to
Still,
say it's longer than that. I've been in this house for over 15 years, and I think I knew you when I still was living in an apartment. But either way, it's been a while.
Yeah,
that's why we work so well together. that and whatever's wrong with you that puts up with my crap. Everyone heard that sigh.
Against all odds, you managed to cheer me up.
But the good news is one of the reasons why I've been so behind the 8 ball is I've been cooking up a storm, and I made some vegetarian curry that was really, really good. I'm trying to get more vegetarian dishes in my repertoire. Actually, I did on Sunday. I did all vegetarian cooking. I made I had meat for breakfast, but I made eggplant parm for lunch, and then I made the Indian curry for dinner with some naan and all that, and that was nice. And then I'm right now I am very excited. I don't think I talked about it here on the show. I talked about it on Handgun Radio because we talk about cooking over there too. I came up with an idea, and I went and did some research, and I found that nobody else was talking about this, but as anybody probably knows, I'm a big sourdough aficionado, and I've got my sourdough starter, and I love it to death. And my family is greatly annoyed by it. My wife actually got me a present for my birthday, which is a shirt, and it's got a bunch of loaves of bread on it, and it says, "Ask me about my sourdough starter." We're not quite as bad as CrossFit or vegans, but we're close. Or Marines. Marines like to talk about being Marines. But I thought about the fact I saw a video where it was actually Chef John from Food Wishes did it's like a New Orleans style fried chicken where the chicken is marinated in the egg. And so you beat up a bunch of eggs and you put all the stuff in it and you marinate it in that. And I went, oh, interesting, because that's the binding protein, but it's also being used as a marinade. Well, wait a second. The sourdough, it's got the flour and the water for the battering, but it's also all the culture makes it acidic, so therefore it's going to act like more of a marinade. You just throw some salt in and some seasoning and all that, and that would work. And I also didn't quite realize until I actually tried it out that the heavy gluten production that happens when you let sourdough run for this long also acts very similar to the protein of the egg. So essentially, I've got chicken pieces in this stuff, and then tomorrow when it's dinner time, I'm just going to heat up a pan of oil, and I'm just going to fish them out and throw them in, and they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to crisp up into a very light, puffy, battered fried chicken. So it's going to kind of similar to Southern fried chicken, or also with a little bit of the Chinese food restaurant, the Chinese food restaurant chicken fingers. I assume that's traditional American stuff, but where they put the baking powder in the batter, so you get these big pillowy chicken fingers. And so, yeah, no, it's good, and I'm excited about it.
Well, now I'm hungry. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, that me too. But we can't eat now. We have their show to do. Dr. Jones, no time for love. All right, so we got some news to talk about. This first one, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in this because I kind of don't get it. But I there was actually I had a revelation thanks to Matt from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns, because we were talking about this before the show started. But there was a shooting in Iowa where a 17-year-old came in with two firearms. One appears to have been a .22. The other one,
pump action shotgun.
The other one was a pump action shotgun. Ended up wounding, I believe, 6 people and killing 1. And
and he killed a child, an 11-year-old.
Yes, yeah. The departed was an 11-year-old, Amir Jolliffe. I don't know how to pronounce that, but
I don't know either.
Yeah, but my apologies to the family, but our thoughts go out to you. One of the people wounded was the principal, who sounded like actually like confronted the gunman and put himself in direct and harm's way as a way to stop this. And
yeah, from what I understand, the principal actually, I don't know if it was stood in front of the gunman or shielded the children, but definitely interposed himself between the children and the bullets.
yes.
And that's very heroic. And what is this? Yeah, Principal Dan Margberger.
Yes.
And suffered from injuries ranging from significant to minor. And so, yes, kudos to everyone who, even if you didn't get injured, kudos for doing your job and going above and beyond, risking your life to protect the children under your care. You've already done a better job than the Uvalde Police Department.
Yes, and the key point to this is, and the reason why I don't want to spend too much time into it, is because this was an attempted mass shooting, but it was not a successful one, and I'm glad that it was not a successful one, and I'm glad that the shooter is dead, and that's all I'm going to say about this person, with one exception of the one thing that is going around a lot, and I think it's a kind of an elephant in the room that I think needs to be discussed, is that there has been some social media posts that state that the killer may have been trans or non-binary or all of that. But at the same time, there are certain things about the person's profile that cast some doubt on that. So, much like the Colorado Springs shooter, where the person was claiming to want to be addressed by female pronouns, but was, in all images of this person, they were dressed male, they had a beard, and they were 100% male presenting, and got their face stomped in by drag queens. I always have to add that. But yeah, so yeah, this is one of the there have been a bunch of shootings where the perpetrator has, in one way or shape or form, identified as trans or non-binary, and some of those may have just been statements, or there might have been some other things going on and all that, but either way, this person was a jerk, and I'm glad that they were unsuccessful, and I'm glad that they chose to end their own life, because that was a righteous shooting. I just wish that they had done that part first.
Oh, I feel like there's something I should add, but I really don't know what to say.
That is fine. I wanted to give you a space to see if you wanted to add something, but there's not a ton. Again, I will, at this point in time, I'll share again. I'm surprised at how much coverage this is getting. I honestly wouldn't have even put this into the show notes if it wasn't for the fact that I am seeing this shooting prop up in many, many, many media locations, and so it's getting coverage both from the two-way community and the right-wing community and the left-wing community and the standard legacy media, etc. And I'm like, why? Why so much of it? And then Matt from Geek Sketches His Gun said, well, the Iowa caucus is like next week. I think he said next week, but it's coming right up. And I'm like, oh, there might be a whole bunch of reporters from New York and DC and Chicago and LA all in Iowa right now, and possibly in Des Moines, and which is not very far from this. And suddenly there's an event, and now they all want to cover it. So it's getting a lot of coverage, but at the same time, it's a it was definitely an unsuccessful spree shooting. And the one thing that needs to be covered is, again, the principal evidently got himself right in harm's way. And I'm sure there were other people that acted upon this to make it so that it didn't work, because there certainly was nothing to stop this from being a horrendously deadly shooting. And there was a reason why the shooter gave up and decided to end their life. Usually it's police response, but this was well before the police got there.
Yeah, the article that we have in the show notes specifically said that 6 others, including 2 staff members and 4 teenage students, suffered injuries in an attempt to, protect, younger children and disarm the gunman.
I mean, that's
so.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because again, we always say, if you're in a place where suddenly gunshots are going off, if you can't immediately get out of there, you are in grave danger. So act accordingly.
Yeah.
And so
actually, I've thought of what it was I was gonna say. First of all, to follow up on what you're saying about how the shooter may have been trans or non-binary or whatever. I know that over the past 6 months or 9 months or whatever, we have seen, it appears to be an increase in violence involving people who claim to be trans, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, I don't know. But what I want to say about that is, I think that the identity of shooters is being sensationalized. And this is nothing new, because when a white person shoots people, if he shoots people who aren't white, then there's going to be accusations of racism and white supremacy. Or they're going to say that he's a conservative, or any number of things, because this is sensational, and sensation is what gets eyeballs on screens and clicks on websites. And, if I wanted to get defensive, I would say, well, when compared with all the violence that we've seen over the past, 20-some years, there are far more straight white men who have murdered people than there have been trans people. And, I'm not saying that, straight white people are bad. I'm just saying, I think that this is being overblown. It is being sensationalized for ratings. The other thing it's more of an observation, really. And this was an attempted mass shooting, not a completed mass shooting, as you said, that didn't involve either an AR or, in fact, well, I started to say a semi-auto weapon. I'm not actually sure what kind of pistol it was other than .22. But the point being here is that we have heard for so long that if we just get rid of the evil AR-15s, then this is going to reduce violence. And so here we have a pump-action shotgun, which is the second least advanced shotgun we have. The only thing that's less technical would be the break apart single shot. But I wonder how the gun prohibitionists are going to spin this. And maybe they won't, but I feel like they will. And I don't know if it's going to be, oh, this is a large bore, this is a destructive device, this is a whatever. And all I'm saying is, watch how they handle this. Because we have been saying, correctly, that the prohibitionists aren't going to stop once they have managed to outlaw AR-15s. They're just going to go with something else. Oh, that's not a hunting rifle, that's a high-powered sniper rifle. Oh, that's not a pistol for self-defense, that's a easily concealable, murder weapon. And just watch and see how they do this, because unless they have a lot of restraint, I think that they're going to reveal their tactic as to what they're going to do once they manage to, I don't think it's going to happen, but, if hypothetically they got their way and they got rid of semi-automatic weapons, this is what they would start doing for the manual guns.
No, you're totally correct. And the right now they are vilifying the AR-15 and the semi-automatic centerfire rifles and all that, and they're kind of being quiet on the handgun front. But yeah, the first up, the Australian government has banned pump action shotguns. That was one of the things that got banned in the 90s after the Port Arthur shooting, and you hear all of the anti-gun people praise Australia for what they've done. At no point anywhere do you hear anybody anywhere saying any country's gun control laws went too far and that they don't support those. They will hem and haw about it here in the United States, but at no point will they say, oh, this country has a complete ban on concealed carry and that's awful. That's too far. Or this country's banned very, very basic firearms. That's awful. That's too far. Nope. You will never hear that. And so, yeah, they even if they don't say anything about it, that's because they're keeping their eye on the prize. They're exercising restraint, knowing that they want to go for the AR-15s and the AKs and the semi-auto rifles. And then they'll switch to handguns. They'll switch to pump-action shotguns. They will switch to whatever. And to the point where, hey, guess what? Google UK and zombie knives. And you will see all of these exact same pearl-clutching, fear-mongering campaigns about gas station knives, these goofy machetes that different knife makers sell. And those are the assault weapons that are trying to be banned in the UK right now. So, yeah, they will never stop. They will never be happy. And just to close out on this, I wanted to post. When I was looking on the WHO 13 in Des Moines, I had that just as a nice local station to watch on this because I heard about the story. And Aaron, you were asking me questions about it. Like, I'm not even looking at the story yet because I'm going to look at it just before the show because I don't trust any of this news because there's so much BS that comes out right in the wake of a major event like this. And one of the headline stories that I found was that school walkouts planned as part of March for Our Lives rally at the Statehouse. And I will say that my prediction is these will be extremely successful and the students will march out of school. And will they support gun control or will they support marching out of school? Because
that's what I was about to say. I mean, most kids, given the chance to play hooky and get away with it, they're going to do that.
Yeah, I see this as very much as the I think I posted that in the show a while back on somebody found the hackers who swatted David Hogg and was asking him, so you guys pro Second Amendment people? And they're like, no, we don't care. He was just a prominent public figure that we saw and we didn't like. And so like they just thought he was obnoxious because he is. And so they swatted him because they could. And it had there was no politics to it whatsoever. And actually, as a matter of fact, I think a couple of them were actually anti-gun and thought the NRA was stupid. And said as such, but hey, guess what? They swatted David Hogg. You know, a lot of these people are like, yeah, no, I don't care about gun control one way or the other. What I do care about is third period French, and screw that class.
So basically, they did it for the lulz.
They did it for the lulz. All right, this next story, Aaron, tell me about this story.
So I found this story courtesy of an article on bearing arms written by friend of the show Tom Knighton. And that article is titled, Indiana Arrests Blow All Kinds of Holes in Gun Control. And I will summarize the article, but first, here is the event in question. So, in Indianapolis, there were two teenagers, one 18-year-old, one 19-year-old, who were caught and arrested for allegedly, I have to say that for legal reasons, bringing machine guns into a mall. And so there were, according to the story, there were three of them, and they only caught two because these were young men in ski masks with guns, and I assume very visible guns because an onlooker, they just say a citizen, contacted mall security about this. And fortunately, mall security in this location was done by off-duty police officers who engaged with them. I mean, I'm not saying they shot at them, but they approached, the three men ran off, and the two of them were captured in hiding. They're still looking for the third one. And so here is the point of both Tom's article and why I brought this up. So, as we all hopefully know, the age to legally own a pistol, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. They were arrested with, I believe, Glock pistols with the machine gun switch, and these guns had been stolen in a robbery. I don't know where they got the switch from. I don't know if they stole that too or bought it off Wish or whatever. So you've got two teenagers who bought pistols, which they couldn't legally buy because the legal age to buy a pistol is 21. And they had machine guns, which are very, well, I wouldn't say illegal. They were illegal in this case because the Glock switches are illegal because I think it's the Hughes Amendment, which says all machine guns manufactured after 1986 you can't buy.
That's correct.
And so the Glock switches, I believe, came after that. And so you've got multiple examples of not just breaking the law, but felonies. So you have young men having a gun that they couldn't have, having guns that they stole, and they turned them into machine guns, which they couldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all of this gun control, and it still didn't stop them because if you're a criminal who's going to commit murder, you're not going to be stopped by regulations.
But that never stops the anti-gunners for asking for more regulation. And if I may quote from the from one of the articles in the show notes, this case serves as another example of why we advocate for Glock switch legislation to provide prosecutors and law enforcement with the tools to hold those accountable who are willing to possess machine guns, Prosecutor Ryan Mears said. While we continue to see the troubling trend of young people with access to these incredible dangerous devices, our office remains committed to aggressively prosecuting these cases. If only we could make Glock switches more illegaler.
Right?
This reminds me of I have taken to one of my guilty pleasures is watching badge cam videos on YouTube. And the thing that just always knocks it's like the first time I've ever seen it every single time is they always these badge cam channels always end with like a mug shot and the charges that were filed and possibly the legal update if they had access to the court data for whether they pled or not, what they were sentenced to. And so many times they will say this person was charged with bail jumping, often multiple accounts, and then they bond them out. And it's one of those like, it didn't work the last few times. What do you expect? Like if someone is getting arrested for bail jumping, don't give them bail. They've already proven they can't be trusted with that. And again, the idea of we need more laws to keep people from putting Glock switches on their Glocks. You mean, besides the NFA? And God knows like how many states have bans against machine guns and probably just generally have bans against like unregistered machine guns. It's just it's absolutely foolish, but they want to just throw one more law on top because that's the one that'll do it. So the next story that I want to cover is again, I want to cover it really quick. Is the headline is Man Who Shot and Killed Southwest Houston Taqueria Robbery. A robber will not be charged. Harris County Grand Jury decides. So I'm trying to remember if we talked about this one on the show.
I don't remember if we did or not, but it was very popular last year. I think we did, to be honest. This is the one where, okay, so there was a taco shop in Houston, and a man comes in waving a gun and proceeds to rob the place, and a patron waits until the robber's back is turned, pulls out a gun, shoots him dead.
Shoots him. Because that's the key is he shoots the robber and the robber falls down and I believe he drops his gun And then the man gets up and puts a couple more rounds into him to make sure that he shot him dead.
Ah, I had missed that. Then he returns the stolen money to the people that the robber had robbed, and then does not stick around for the police and instead leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And when the police asked the people who had stuck around, and I don't know if any of the customers stuck around, I don't think they did, but there were most likely some employees there. Coincidentally, no one could identify him.
Mm-hmm. Who was that masked man?
Yeah, I say that with quotes because I'm pretty sure they knew exactly who he was, and they were not going to rat him out. It was just, no, I don't know him.
But either way, the point. Go ahead.
But apparently, and this was news to me as I was looking at this story, within a day or two, apparently the man who had done the shooting contacted a lawyer, smart, and the lawyer contacted the police, and the police interviewed him, and that leads us about a year later to where we are right now. And so why won't this shooter be charged, Weer'd?
Maybe I'm sorry. Maybe I missed the punchline actually. But maybe I did miss that part. I really just wanted to point out the premise of it being such a really a letter of the law dirty shoot, but the jury felt that it was just fine. What part did I miss, Aaron?
Well, I mean, we hadn't really mentioned that. Okay, the grand jury decided that it was in fact a good shoot. And the thing that I thought was interesting, I don't quite know if I can find it here, but I don't remember who was the jury ruled this or the prosecutor, but essentially the statement was, if you are shooting in self-defense of yourself or another, and you are shooting to kill, then pretty much every bullet after the first is most likely, justified. There are obviously cases where that may not be true. And, Masayu, among others, says, okay, shoot until they're no longer a threat. Don't finish them off. But here we go. It's in a linked article where the shooter was questioned. And, yeah, the defense attorney said that if the shooting is justified under Texas law, it doesn't matter how many bullets were fired. Quote, once you are entitled to use deadly force under the law, you're entitled to use deadly force until the threat is over, which we know. I can't quite find it, but I believe I remember reading somewhere that it's like, look, if you're going to shoot one, then you're entitled to shoot them all. And I think this may just be a Texas thing, because as an example of how Texas is different from a lot of other states, Texas is, I think, one of only two states where it is allowed to use lethal force in defense of property. And I believe Alaska is the other.
Okay, I knew that's true with Texas. I do know about another one, but Texas has probably some of the most liberal self-defense laws.
And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Texas is a big ranching state. And so, horses and cattle and things like that, those are property, but they're also really expensive. And they've got this history against, cattle rustlers and horse thieves get shot. And I think that's the logical explanation, the logical extrapolation from that. So I think the short version here is what's legal in Texas is probably not legal in other places, so consult your state laws first, just so that you're on the right side of the prosecution.
Yeah, exactly. My point is that we've got this case that was caught on video that, I mean, I don't think I've heard a single expert that has reviewed this that has not said this looks like a bad shoot, in the fact that not the first few rounds, again, the guy was robbing and pointing guns at people and all that. That is a perfectly reasonable justification to shooting the guy, but the moment he was down on the ground and was clearly no longer a threat was not the time to put more rounds into him and make sure that he is dead. And so that is a problem. But at the same time, he got away with it, which is good, but don't bank on that, because I would argue that Kyle Rittenhouse had probably the most documented justifiable shooting case in the history of justifiable shootings, and was still charged with murder. And so and was absolutely dragged through the coals. So don't go putting anchor shots in people. Once they're down, you're good.
Now, see, I haven't seen the video of the shooting. I've seen the video leading up to the shooting, and the moment the shooter pulls the gun, that's where it freezes. Mm-hmm. Because the news, and it's understandable, it doesn't show people getting killed. So I didn't see that, and I didn't realize that was the point of contention here.
Yeah, you go check out Active Self-Protection. They have a breakdown of it that was really, really good.
So they have the whole video then?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, one more short story, and then the big one that you guys are all waiting for is this one comes out of Illinois, and this is another one that that Aaron may find some minutia in this story that I missed, because the big story is really more of the headline is most owners of assault style weapons in Illinois appear to have not registered them as required by law. And I didn't dive too deep in this because I've heard multiple people doing multiple levels of math to try to determine the level of non-compliance, and they're really starting with shaky data, so I don't really trust any of it, but I do know that it is conclusive. Everyone is saying that the non-compliance is extremely high. Let's just say that the number that gets scattered around is at and around 1%, if not lower, for the number of gun owners who have guns that may or may not apply to this, that have essentially attempted to register them to comply with this law. And this just is going to show this new level of defiance against gun control is non-compliance. You've got, again, in Illinois, when this law was passed, a whole bunch of sheriffs have all stepped forward and said, yeah, it doesn't exist as far as we're concerned. We're not enforcing it. And then you've got these people who very likely own firearms that are contrary to the law and have not registered theirs. And so, yeah, non-compliance has become the new civil disobedience in Second Amendment cases.
What I thought was interesting was, and it wasn't so much in the article you listed, but I've seen it on Facebook, and the Illinois State Police has basically been saying, hey, we know the deadline has passed, but you know what? You can still register your assault weapons without penalty. And the almost universal response is, don't do it, you fools, because when you do, you are just confessing to breaking the law. I don't know if this is, I don't think it's a felony. I think that they said in the article that it's a misdemeanor. But still, you are just admitting to the police that, yeah, I broke the law, and I had at one point, and perhaps still do, have contraband. So if you want to come get it, now you know where it is. So, I mean, I would, to our Illinois listeners, I would never tell you to break the law. What I am telling you is to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a plan. All right. On to the big story. Aaron, would you like to do the honors?
Sure. So this came as a big surprise to me, and I imagine it came as a surprise to a lot of you. But for Weer'd and I, who have been watching the state of the NRA since at least 2018, we were under not even the impression, the belief. I mean, we would have laid money on the fact that Wayne LaPierre was so politically connected and knew where all the proverbial bodies were buried, that the only way he was leaving the office of executive vice president was in handcuffs or a body bag. And he surprised a whole bunch of us by announcing his resignation effective at the end of the year. And
end of the month.
You are correct. I said end of month in my head, but I did say end of the year. That is correct. By January 31st, his resignation with the NRA is official, and he gets to deploy his $17 million golden parachute. And I honestly have no idea what's going on, because this doesn't get him off the hook for the charges with the New York Attorney General, because the charges are things he did while he was running the NRA, and it's not like he's free and clear if he's no longer with the NRA. If the only way I could twist this into making some semblance of sense would be if somebody in the organization, 1, grew a spine, 2, found dirt on him, 3, didn't have, requisite dirt in return that would result in mutual assured destruction, and then 4, basically blackmailed Wayne, saying, okay, you either resign or I hand this over to the Attorney General. That's the only way that makes sense to me, but given my experiences with the NRA Board of Directors, and the last several years have really borne out our impressions of the Kingdom of Wayne. I don't see that happening. So I don't have any real insight as to what's going on or why. We've got a follow-up article which is tangentially related, but we'll touch on that in a minute. Weird, do you have anything to bring to this, or are you just as baffled as I am?
I'm not baffled as much as I have a whole bunch of theories, some of which are what you've mentioned. Another one is that one of the reasons that he is citing for leaving is health reasons, at least in my... There's no more specifics on that I have heard. But I will say that, here in Massachusetts, our government are criminals. And one of the more recent high-profile criminals was the former Massachusetts Speaker of the House, Sal DeMacy. And Sal DeMacy went to prison for corruption, and I'm trying to remember what else he was doing. He was a Massachusetts politician, and some of them go to prison. And he was in prison, and then he got cancer, and after the cancer, he used the cancer diagnosis to appeal for what's called compassionate release, and the review board, whoever that may be, the prison board, declared that he was eligible for compassionate release, and they released him to go die breathing free air. And that was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And he's now a lobbyist that he's working on Capitol Hill again. Mm. And I wonder if that might also be, as Wayne is citing health reasons, and he may march out some various doctors' reports or doctors that say Wayne's not doing so well, he's dying. He throw at the mercy of the court with a sentencing, and then he has a miraculous miracle cure.
That could very well be. I simply wish to state, for purposes of completeness, that resigning for health reasons is one of the very popular reasons given when someone resigns from a public position. The other one being, I want to spend more time with my family. Mm-hmm. So I'm cynical enough that I'm going, okay, could be, but I doubt it. But, we will find out in time.
All right, and now another possible. Well, this really doesn't shed as much light onto it. It's just interesting, which is you found this story, but Josh Powell gets his deal from the New York AG, mm-hmm. and it's an interesting deal. So, Josh Powell what was his position in the NRA?
I think he was head of general operations, I want to say. And and then he resigned or was fired. I'm so very good with names, as you're aware.
But either way, he will pay $100,000 of restitution. He will be permanently barred from serving as the director's officer or trustee of any role with fiduciary duties for any non-profitable or charitable organization. And he agrees to accept service of a subpoena for an addition for appearance at the trial. And
in other words, he's well, I wouldn't say he's necessarily turning state's witness, but he is basically saying, for this sweetheart deal, I'm going to show up and I'm going to testify.
Exactly.
And since I've already interrupted, he is the former chief of staff for the NRA.
Yeah, so this is not the type of person that you want testifying at your court case. Oh, will be responsible for fees and expenses associated with his testimony at the trial.
So, really, what's important about this and why he has done this settlement, and I will admit I haven't dug into this as thoroughly as I could have because I've got a lot going on in my life right now, but the reason why he made this deal is because Powell had been told by NRA that they weren't going to cover his legal fees and that he had to find representation for himself. And he couldn't afford that. And so I don't really know why the NRA decided that a former head honcho who potentially had dirt would not be covered. Maybe they decided that they needed all of their money, to piss away on legal fees because their legal team doesn't seem to be doing a very good job. I mean, when the judge looks at their motion and says, well, not even couched in legalese, but basically it's look, guys, you had a year to do this, and you're just now filing this motion. I'm done putting up with your crap. No, deal with it. And that's just an example of one of the things his legal team is doing, and so that's why I say the NRA is just burning money on legal fees. But when Josh Powell was told that he's on his own, and he's going, I cannot afford this, and that is why he sought this deal. And so we've been saying for a long time that the NRA has made some really questionable, if not incompetent, decisions. That was one of them, because they basically served up to their opponent someone who is now going to testify. And one would imagine that based upon this deal that he's got some juicy dirt, because when you look at the terms of this deal, you will notice that he avoided jail time. And while I can't state for certain that people are going to jail for this, from what I have seen of the way all of this started, I mean, I believe that it was Cuomo who directed AG Letitia Jones or James?
James.
Anyway, James. All right. He directed AG James basically destroy the NRA by whatever means possible, and they went digging, and lo and behold, they actually found things. And so my theory here is that they're going to keep going. And they're going to seek the maximum penalty possible because they can. And so I think Josh Powell got his deal specifically to avoid doing any sort of jail time. And honestly, a fine of $100,000, I mean, I know that's not cheap, but it could have been so much worse. I mean, they could have fined him in the millions, I think. Because Wayne is on the hook for wasting like tens of millions of dollars of the NRA's funds for things like suits and travel and makeup for his wife and things like that. And that's what fiduciary malfeasance means. That you are not doing right with the company funds. You're wasting them. You're using them for your own gain. And so that's why I believe Josh Powell got his deal. It'll be really interesting to find out what he knows and how he testifies. And we will see if the NRA once again has managed to not just harm themselves, but actually handed ammunition to an opponent.
Yeah, and that is in the short run, that is my prediction, because I mean, already Wayne's successor was handpicked by Wayne and therefore is a loyalist to him. And they attempted to remove Wayne LaPierre back in Indianapolis during the NRA annual meeting, and they called a secret vote that was allegedly unanimous. But there were huge numbers of board members who said, "Yeah, no, I voted to remove him," and they said it was unanimous. So, I don't see this as cleaning out of the corruption, but it could be. Just depending on how the person feels. Either there's someone that's not into stealing, and so therefore they're going to stop stealing, and they're going to be caring about the Second Amendment instead, or there's someone who's interested in stealing, but they've realized that the NRA has been looted to all get out, and to get anything from the NRA, they would need to increase the membership. And since so many members distrust it, they would actually need to start supporting the Second Amendment to bulk things back up again, so that there could be something to steal. But that's my prediction.
Now, there's a blog that I follow, and I think you follow as well. It's called NRA in Danger, and they have been covering this in pretty good detail over the past few years. And one of the posts, I don't remember if it was December or November, maybe even October, but it was the actual number of members versus what the NRA projected those members to be. And they have been hemorrhaging members. And when they hemorrhage members, that means that they lose all of those membership fees and the other like NRA branded items that the members buy. So they've just been losing money as well as losing members. And so things look really, really bad. And so I think that lends weight to your credence that there's really not much to be looted from the NRA.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I think we had Logan Medish on, who used to be a historian for the NRA Firearms Museum, and he was apoplectic that there had been a vote taken that the NRA could essentially start selling off museum items. And he was upset because not only were they selling off these historical firearms, but the belief was that the money was going to go straight into the legal fees in order to keep Wayne and others in power. And so I really don't know what's going to happen. But the only thing I can say is that when all is said and done, there is likely to be an NRA still left, because the judge in the trial has absolutely removed from the table the dissolution of the organization. So the Attorney General doesn't get to completely destroy the org, but gutting it, rendering it a shell, that's still a possibility. And I think that's pretty likely.
But last up on this subject matter, you linked a Bearing Arms post from Cam Edwards. Do you want to take this one?
I feel like I've been talking a lot, but okay. And so it's titled, "What Anti-2A Activists Don't Get About LaPierre Leaving the NRA." And if you're a listener of this podcast, you probably know where it's going. And so the short version is that you've got the gun prohibitionists who are dancing with joy, saying that, okay, victory is ours, and with this, we're going to destroy the NRA, and it's a shift in the Second Amendment movement, and we're now going to see more gun laws coming together, and we're going to solve the gun violence by banning all these guns. And what I have also seen is a bunch of pro-gun people who are going, no, you don't understand. The NRA was, at best, a moderate, and at worst, really, really soft on gun control. And getting rid of them just means that the more hardline orgs are going to come to power. So it's kind of funny telling all the anti-gunners, you don't understand. We're happy Wayne is gone. We think the NRA stood for negotiating rights away. We think that it's time to have a more hardline look at this sort of thing. And I don't think they believe us.
We want to swim laps in an Olympic-sized swimming pool filled with your tears. Start crying. Yeah. No, that is very true. Is that this is a good thing, and we are all pleased to see it. The worst case scenario will be if it continues on to the original status quo. That's the only way. That's the worst it can get. Otherwise, it's all better.
And if that's the worst it is, I mean, we've gone on this long. Well, nothing really changes. Okay, we'll just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I just want to bring up that after the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, President Trump asked the NRA, hey, what do you think about bump stocks? And they basically said, nah, go ahead and ban them. We don't like them.
That's correct. Yeah, Trump has been pretty open about the fact that, no, he defends the bump stocks because the bump stocks, A, weren't very serious, which is correct, but that's not how any of this works. And two, the NRA gave him their blessing. So therefore, you stupid gun nuts should love this crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I point out the fact that, no, we mentioned when that went through, we don't care about bump stocks. Bump stocks are pretty dumb. I've got zero desire to own one. I don't care. But the precedents that it's set, this is the same precedents that was where the ATF is banning pistol braces. And the same one that is going with maybe the AR-15 has two separate receivers that need to be treated as two different firearms. Or various other just out of whole cloth ATF ads.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or ATF movements. And so, yeah, Trump set a really, really dangerous precedent with the bump stock ban, and we shouldn't forget that. And the NRA blessed him for it, and we definitely should.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the oldest, most historic gun rights organization is going to ever get back to what it was, and maybe it shouldn't. But regardless, this is something that I didn't see happening, and I realize it makes me sound very petty, but I've got the popcorn on standby.
All right, so let's shift gears to some segments. So this first one up comes from Sean Sorrentino, and as a response to David's segment on dry fire, if you can remember back that far, because we've done multiple roundtables since then, Sean gives us his dry fire regiment for practical and competition shooting.
Last week, David talked about dry fire, but he never explained why you should do it, nor really exactly what you were doing. So that's what I'm going to try to explain. In the few years since I stopped running Gun Blog Variety Cast Radio, which was reborn like a phoenix into Assorted Calibers podcast, I've turned myself into a pretty good competition shooter. How good? I'm a masterclass IDPA shooter, and I just made B-class in USPSA. I'm not at the top of either sport, but compared to the general population of handgun shooters, I'm probably in the top 3 to 5%. That means I'm well placed to tell you how to get really damn good with a handgun. It also means I'm the right person to tell you why you personally won't do it. How do you get good shooting a handgun? Dry fire. Why won't you get good at shooting a handgun? Dry fire. It's said that opportunity knocks. The problem is that we never recognize it because it comes dressed in coveralls disguised as hard work. This is your test. Are you willing to put in the work? If not, just skip this segment because I'm not going to teach you any shortcuts, and I'm not even going to lie to you about it. There are 1,000,001 grifters out there who are trying to sell you a gimmick or a tool that promises to take you straight from the couch to the podium without hours of boring practice. I'm not that guy. I don't want your money. And to a certain extent, I don't even want you to get good. Because if you get good, then I have to work harder to beat you if you show up at the same competition I'm shooting at. Feel free to stay mediocre while I keep getting better. There's just one thing though. I won't be at your gunfight. I won't be there to be good enough with a handgun to save your ass. That's on you. So what's your answer? Are you willing to put in the work? If not, fast forward. If so, stick around. I'll give you the recipe for success. What is dry fire? Some of you have this vague idea that dry fire is that dumb thing they made you do in basic training, where you balance a dime or a washer on the muzzle brake of your rifle and then try to pull the trigger without knocking it off. That's not what I'm talking about here. Doing that as a pistol shooter is a waste of your time. What we're actually talking about is using your shot timer as a prompt to learn to draw from the holster and get your sights on the target. Basically, that's all there is to it. The very first drill is to stand 5 yards from your target, and when the beep of the shot timer sounds, draw and point your gun at the target. The drill ends with your finger on the trigger, the sights on the target, and the safety, if you have one, off. Don't pull the trigger. Sounds easy, right? Now do it in 0.6 of a second. That's your goal. 3 to 5 minutes of draws, over and over and over again until your little egg timer beeps saying that 3 to 5 minutes is up. Then do the same thing at 10 yards. Then again at 10 yards with your hands up in the surrender position. And again with your back turned to the target. Then one-handed. And then with the other hand. 3 to 5 minutes each. As many times as you can. Each ending with your finger on the trigger, your sights on the target, safety off, but don't pull the trigger. Note that in the first 6 drills, you don't pull the trigger. So it doesn't matter if your gun only allows one pull of the trigger. You aren't pulling it anyway. And why is that? Because that's not the point of dry fire. The point of dry fire is to teach you to access your handgun, draw it, and put the sights on the target no matter what body position you are in. It's to teach your body how to move so that putting the sights on the target is so ingrained that all you have to do is look at the target and the sights will magically appear on that target. Do you think that might be valuable in a defensive encounter? Which do you think is more intimidating to a potential attacker? The guy who fumbles about trying to find his gun, gets caught in his shirt, and looks like his hand and his gun are distant cousins if they're even related? Or the guy who makes a handgun appear instantly, as if conjured into place? I think you know which one the attacker is going to be more afraid of. There are 6 more drills you can learn from the dry fire book, but let's see what you can do with these first. I won't sell you anything, but there are some things you're going to need. Check out the show notes for links. You're going to be spending about $260 over and above your gun and your holster. I assume you already have those. You need a dry fire book. I use Steve Anderson's Refinement and Repetition. There are others. I use Steve's. You need a barrel block. For $5, you can buy an orange rod designed to stick in your handgun barrel that will positively prevent you from chambering around. But safety is on you. If you don't think it's worth $5 to prevent you from shooting a hole through your wall and into your neighbor's house, I can't help you. You want 3 dry fire magazines, not those silly trigger resetting contraptions. These are weighted plastic dummy magazines that you can use to practice reloads. And since they can't contain bullets, your walls and your neighbors are that much safer. You want some dry fire targets. Unless you live in a place where you can put full-size targets 10 yards from yourself, you want some smaller scale targets. Oh, I can shoot light switches. Great. You just saved a whole $10. Do you feel frugal? Just buy some dry fire targets and use them. Finally, you want a shot timer. You can get by with one of those dumb dry fire apps on your phone, but they suck and you will hate them. Buy a real shot timer. I've linked the best one. They're not cheap. Dry fire is
friggin'
boring. Ask Erin. The time she escaped a hurricane and came to my house, I taught her these 6 drills. They're not exciting, but she got a whole lot faster in a very short period of time. But since they're so boring, I doubt she's continued with them. That's why I don't think any of you will be doing the one thing that you could be doing that would take you from being a guy who owns a gun to a really damn good pistol shooter. My prediction is that for every 1,000 people who listen to this podcast, 5 of you will try dry fire, and maybe 1 of you will stick with it. Anyone want to prove me wrong? Aaron will put my link tree in the show notes. When you've done these 6 drills, 3 days a week, for a month, a total time commitment of 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, send me an email and let me know that you're one of the very few willing to put in the work. And make sure to put your wife's egg timer back in the kitchen when you're done.
I will just say, go check out Sean's link in the show notes. I like how he itemizes them for budget. It's very down to earth. And the barrel block that he has linked, that was something I hadn't heard of before, and it's really cool. Though I will note that, he mentions the gun and the holster as 2 items that he just assumes that you already have. Well, the one thing you may already have is snap caps, and that's a great way of blocking the barrel of a firearm so that no additional rounds can be chambered, but doing it with a piece of equipment that you may already have.
I have one of those barrel blocks, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was given to me by the Complete Combatant when I went to their mingle, however many years ago it was at this point. And it's really interesting. And not only does it, well, it's a big orange piece of plastic that you have to disassemble the gun to get it into the barrel. And so not only does it stick out the barrel, showing that the gun cannot fire, but since it physically occupies the chamber, there's no way to load. So even if you somehow got a loaded magazine into your gun, it would not cycle. And so it's really neat, and it's just a bright orange $5 piece of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great.
Yeah, I wanted to link. There was one that I saw. I saw Kathy Jackson using it on the Cornered Cat. Was a completely like solid plastic Glock barrel that you could drop in, and so the whole barrel is just a big inert piece of plastic, and that was interesting. But I wasn't actually able to find it. I found a ton of these barrel block style training aids, and so yeah, that clearly appears to be the way that things are going. So do that or put snap caps in.
Mm-hmm. And they come in a variety of calibers: 380, 9mm, 40 caliber, and of course 45. Weer'd.
I've got 45 snap caps. I also have 7.62 by 25 because I've got a CZ52 and they're known for having very, very brittle firing pins. And so if I wanted to dry fire that gun, you're really kind of required to have snap caps.
So you know that proverb about how there's no such thing as too much ammo unless you're swimming or on fire? Yeah, go ahead and add moving to that list. I know it well, and so does Xander.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opal. It's been a few months due to two things having happened at the tail end of 2023. Harvest, combined with moving. I'll go into Harvest another time, though some of the highlights, or rather lowlights, can be found in blooper reels spanning the time between this and my previous segment. There's a few things I did right, and a lot of things I should have done differently in hindsight. I hope the segment helps others avoid some of the mistakes I made. First off, if at all possible, don't end your lease until the destination is ready for you to move in. The builder was rather optimistic, with the result of most of my belongings in storage and me living in my folks' guest room. I'm a very private person, and I found out many years ago it is a lot easier to deal with family when not living under the same roof. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, after 3 days, both fish and guests begin to smell. I'm lucky in that I am not having to pay for a hotel or beg for a couch at a friend's place. Second, when packing, put the stuff you'll need right away together and clearly label the containers. I will need to start with digging through some boxes for a few kitchen and computer items when I set back up. Additionally, label which location items were from when packed away. This will help you to move boxes around and lug stuff about less. Furthermore, I found out that a great way to save money, instead of buying bubble wrap or other packing material to protect things like glassware, clean socks and shirts make wonderful padding in boxes. Third, don't go it alone. Aside from one truckload of things that needed 2 people to carry, I did everything myself. That was a big mistake. Next time I move, I'll be having assistance, so I don't wipe myself out trying to do a bit at a time until the last minute where I was up to an extremely early hour in the morning. Fortunately, I'm not planning on moving for quite a few years. I took special care with certain items. My computers, firearms, ammunition, and personal papers were packed up and kept with care to prevent loss, theft, or damage. Some things are extremely embarrassing if a helpful friend peeks in a box. Some things are extremely damaging if an unscrupulous mover loses, in quotes, it. When I set back up in the new place, my biggest goal is to not have boxes tucked away that I won't touch until the next move. There are a few things that I will keep stored. I have some toys from my childhood that I can't bear to throw away, but will pass on to someone who will appreciate them. Otherwise, things will either be found a proper place, given away, or thrown out. Life is too short to lug junk around in the fashion of Marley's chains. The last item is a reminder to update your address with various places in a timely manner. My bank requires an ID, such as a driver's license with the new address, to change things in the system to help prevent fraud. I also needed to ensure that my investment manager, insurance, cell phone, and doctor also have my new information. Oh, wait, I need to do that last this week. One more thing. You need to make sure your possessions are legal in the place you're moving to. Moving from city to country made that simple for me. Others who move into a large city or to another state may find that their firearms or sharp pointy things land them in prison if they keep their previously perfectly legal possessions. Have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about. No, folks, I'm fine. I'm just recording something for the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know how much ammo Xander has, and it's none of my business. I have a fair bit. I have multiple ammo cans, and really, just from moving it from the garage to the new walk-in closet, ow, my back. So, I mean, when he's literally moving across town, I think, yeah, that's a pain. I recall David saying when he moved from New York to Tennessee how, like, the entire back seat of his car was filled with ammo cans, and they had no suspension left. They felt every bump.
Yeah, ammo can be heavy. I don't know how it happened, but I ordered a whole bunch of ammo from Phoenix Ammo last year, and a whole bunch more than I thought showed up. But it was a really, really good deal, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, that was a trial, just moving the boxes of ammo down into my basement. Oh, yeah, no, ammo is a pain in the butt to move, and guns themselves can be a pain in the butt to move, especially, either complying with any laws that you may doing so, but also keeping them from like scratching or damaging themselves. Yeah, I was actually surprised when we moved from my last apartment to this place that I had enough various gun boxes, cases, mini safes, and various things that I could easily transport, that I was actually able to transfer all my firearms in one go. I thought I was going to have to take multiple trips. But this one really spoke to me because there's just so many levels. What I'll say, I don't know, maybe it's a humble brag, but one of the things that we did was we converted our third floor. We had it renovated. It was kind of a little like, it was originally set up as a bedroom, but we didn't want any of that. And so we set it up kind of as a family room up there, but we set Murphy beds into the wall so it could be converted into a guest bedroom. And it's awesome because it's a whole floor. We just shut the door and there's a bathroom up there, and you guys just be you, and I'll be down on the first floor cooking breakfast and listening to music and all that. You won't hear anything, and you just come down when you're ready because, well, us morning people, we sometimes bother the night owls that need to stay in bed a little bit longer.
Next time, just at me.
Yeah. Xander mentioned wrapping fragile things in clothes for padding. That's a great way of padding out your boxes and all of that without A, wasting packing material, and B, bringing stuff that you were already bringing with you. Just make sure you know which clothing items contain the breakable items, because we were one time at a thrift shop and we had bought some clothing and various things, and I had bought some vintage martini glasses, and to help transport them home, we wrapped them in the clothing. And then my wife, without thinking, when we got home, grabbed the clothing and shook them out to expose them. And one of my martini glasses went flying across the room and then turned into shrapnel. And yeah, it was very sad. Thankfully, it was a set of 3, so I still have 2 of those. Let's see. All right, another. I'm just gonna go down this list because again, like, this was nuts. Yeah, another one. Hire movers. movers are wonderful because that's their vocation. That's what they do all day. So they're really, really good at it. And furthermore, hire just the movers. So many times you will hire a moving company and they will say you'll hire them and they will show up at your house and they'll look to see what you have to move. They will quote you a price and then they will show up with a big truck, put everything in the big truck and move it to the new place. If you're not doing like a cross-country move where that actually might be the best bet, hire just the movers and then go to your local truck rental place like U-Haul and rent a truck. And then you show up with the truck, they show up with the dudes, and they put the stuff in the truck, and then you drive it to the new location, and then they unload the stuff out of the truck. And again, this is what they do. So like literally we had this like antique roll top desk that my family's had for like, or my wife's family's had for generations. And we were just so nervous that it was going to get damaged. So it was just like, be very, very careful. This is very valuable. And just one dude just like picked it up like it was like a packet of peanuts and just like so gracefully brought it out and packed it in the truck and then brought it back in and put it exactly where we wanted it. Hire movers, because if my friends had done that, we would have damaged something. We would have just broken it. And then, two more things. One is okay, I get the timeless keepsake. Yeah, there's some stuff like childhood toys and things like that. Yeah, no, I get that. You don't have to throw stuff away that you love. But for stuff that doesn't fit in that category, if it hasn't been unpacked in a year or two, you're probably not going to miss it. So it's better off sold or donated. And I had a comic book collection. It was really more of a comic book accumulation. And just I found them and I'm like, oh, here, let me show these to my daughter. They've just been literally sitting in a box in my basement for years. And I just went and said, oh, here, do you want to see these? Let's see if it's, and we went and read through a few of them. And I noticed there was a bunch of like a few number ones that I'm like, oh, oh yeah, I remember buying these and going, oh, this is the number one for this comic series. Is this worth anything? And some of them weren't. And some of them were worth a little. And one of them was worth, I want to say it was like between $60 and $100, but granted, this wasn't like it wasn't sealed in a graded container or anything like that. So it was worth a bit of money. And after we read through all of them, my daughter was like, yeah, I'm fine with these anymore. I said, well, let's go sell them. And so we went to a local comic book shop. I only went to one because I value time more than money. And unfortunately, the guy kind of took me to the cleaners. He gave me less money than I think the most valuable comic book was worth in a very like reasonable asking price. But I accepted, and it took me a little while to get over it because I felt taken. But at the same time, they were just sitting in my basement. All we needed was just a nasty storm to flood my basement, and they would have been completely ruined, and they would have gone in the trash. And so I'm so much happier that those comics are now with somebody who's hopefully reading them and loving them, as opposed to just sitting in a box. And so that's just something to consider for, again, if you've moved and there's a box that's still just sealed up or it's opened and you've looked into it, but you haven't unpacked it, maybe it's time for it to go.
Does this box spark joy?
That's right. Yes. The Kondo. What's her first name?
Marie
Kondo. Yes. I haven't watched any of those things. And I'm probably not going to because I live in squalor.
I thought you lived in Massachusetts.
A thing could be two things. And speaking of living in Massachusetts, Xander mentioned that you beware of your state laws, and yes, sometimes this can very much be this can very much be a thing of negative, such as like if you have magazines or if you have various modern sporting rifles, they might not be able to come into that state, but in Massachusetts, one of the only ways to get off-roster firearms is to have somebody moving into the state owning them already. And so, oh God, if I had known, I could have just like got a whole bunch of guns that weren't Massachusetts legal with going in. But as I mentioned, actually in episode 1 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, I didn't even realize how bad Massachusetts gun laws were until I got here. And that was what really kind of turned me into the Second Amendment advocate that I am. So, just check out the laws before you move, because it may save you from some legal trouble, but it also might be beneficial. Just saying. And I've talked long enough. So,
wow, I never thought I'd hear you say that.
Well, I don't mean it.
Well, okay then.
I'm really just being considerate to our listeners, each and every one of you who tune in every week to listen to my voice and Aaron's voice, and hopefully not me talking as long as I did. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate that. But I've also got to give some very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP Magnum.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off. And by the way, for those of you who listen on Google Podcasts, that's going away in like April of this year, so you're gonna need to look into another podcast service.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that because that's actually what I use.
Me too.
I got a blog. It's weerdworlds.com. That's WEERD world.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me, in theory. I'd like to get better. It's been a year, folks. At LinkTree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
Weer'd loves to talk, and I wait quietly to say, okay. Our conversational styles are assorted, and so is our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.